Welcome back to the Scared Stiff podcast. This is your host, Mike. This is my co-host, Scott. How you doing, buddy?
I'm all right.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Would you like to introduce what movie we're talking about today?
Yeah, we're talking about the 2010 Wolfman. This is a film I haven't seen before until my recent viewing. And this is a film Mike's known for a while. He's been asking me to see. It coincides with the whole Universal Monster theme. It's one that's based on a different decade or area than all the other ones we covered. So it would be a good piece to put in here. And you can start it off. You've seen it before.
So I saw this movie I think in 2011 or 2012, so not too long after it released. I watched it on Netflix DVD. I had it sent to me. And when I watched it the first time, I'm not going to lie, I thought it was really boring until some of the, more violent parts because I was a dumb teenager. But for this viewing, a lot changed for me. And I don't want to bury the lead. I really, really enjoyed this movie a lot, actually. And I know this is going to be the first time that we're going to disagree on the podcast.
I don't think it's a bad movie. I think if you change a few things, it'd be better. I think it's very much defined by its decade coming out in 2010. And there's a lot of cool things about it, but as like a full-on film, I can't ever say I'd watch it again. Like I don't think it really invests me. I think some performances are so lackluster and then other performances are pretty good, but all together I was just pretty much like just like whatever about it. Like I finished it and I'm like, that's another one done.
Oh man.
And I really love the first Wolfman from 1940. I'm not the type of guy who watches a movie and bases everything around the previous entry of the film or the first version because it's a new movie, it's different. And that that works to this film's benefit a lot of the time. Sometimes it takes little hints and things from the other 1940s Wolfman, and I think that kind of has more of a detriment than a help throughout the film. I feel like if it was more different, they weren't names attached, it'd be a better film, honestly. Like the characters are so vastly different. The fact that he is Lawrence Talbot, like I don't really like that because he's so radically different, but I like the character. I think it's cool, but there's just so many things that are so radically different. I don't understand the point of making him Lawrence Talbot. It's just a name at that point.
Yeah, I can see that. I could definitely see that perspective. I didn't mind them reutilizing the character Lawrence Talbot for this version. I mean, like the Wolfman is my favorite Universal monster film, so I love that movie to death. And Lon Chaney Jr.'s performance is legendary. The basic setup of this movie is very similar to the setup for the original because it still follows the whole idea. His brother died. He returns to his family home to reconnect with his father, and then all that stuff, and then he gets into the whole thing. He gets the curse of the werewolf, and then that's where our movie is. But I like the fact that it deviates. It not in
Yeah.
not in like huge ways. I mean, like the character, yes, of Lawrence Talbot, yeah, and I mean his father too,
I
obviously.
think there is huge deviations, but
No, but I think the deviations that they make are to the film's benefit for the most part. Not all of them. This is not a
yeah.
perfect movie. I'm not gonna sit here and say it's a 5 out of 5, fucking masterpiece. I have problems with the movie, but I think a lot of the choices that they make really work for me. And I think part of that also like comes down to it's directed by a class act director, Joe Johnston, same guy directed The Rocketeer and Captain America: The First Avenger. He's a very good director whose career was sadly cut short. He retired way too early. I think he just directs the shit out of this movie. I love the way it looks. I love the score. I mean, that's not Joe Johnston's department, but the score for this by Danny Elfman's awesome. Probably one of Danny Elfman's best recent scores, which is a really, really beautiful film with third act problems.
I
And I
don't like
think,
the entire third act nearly.
yeah, I like all the stuff in the insane asylum and to his breakout when he gets
Yeah,
actually I don't mind a lot of the stuff at the family home at the end until
the change.
the
Yeah,
throwdown. And I'm like,
yeah.
this is a little bit of a different movie.
It changes the entire tone
It's
of the movie.
yeah, it's a monster
It
mash
goes from
battle
like the idea of a horror film or a psychological horror film
to
to
an
a straight
action
up
movie.
action film.
It's a fucking. I remember actually. I think when I first saw the movie, I was sitting there watching. I'm like, so it's like a classy period piece horror movie with lots of gore instead of the way it would be back in the day. But it's a classy period piece horror movie that's full of suspense and some really beautiful imagery and some really scary makeup effects and all this stuff. And then also we get to the end, and it's a fucking WWE fucking SummerSlam match between fucking Anthony Hopkins and Benicio del Toro. It's a little bit ridiculous. Part of me, despite the fact that I would say from an objective point of view, that doesn't work for the movie just because it's completely different from the tone of the entire movie. But man, the schlocky, I just love watching it because it's so stupid, but it is definitely a problem.
I would agree if it's intentionally stupid, but it's
No, I
not
agree.
intentionally stupid.
Yeah, no, I'm
I can't understand
completely
enjoying it though.
I'm
Like,
completely enjoying it from I don't know if I would say ironic perspective
yeah,
because I don't think it's bad. It's just divorced from the same film.
yeah, that's the big problem with the film. And I could go on about the end of the film and like how it really hurts it, but just from the beginning of the film, from the get go, I like the cinematography for it. I like a lot of the setting for the period pieces. My only problem is sometimes when it's shot, it's so like vibrant with some color and like it feels like they put it in black and white mode in a digital camera because it feels so fake, and that takes away from it for me sometimes because I like the way it looks, but sometimes it almost feels overly edited and I don't understand why it's like that. But
You mean like straight up like the way that the shots are edited together?
not the way the shots are edited, just like the cinematography. Like if you were just going to put a filter over it, it looks
Oh,
like this, the filtering on it is so like glaring to me personally because some shots don't have that. So when there are shots like that, it's like, why the fuck are you doing that? And it does feel very much like a 2010 film, like they're trying to
it's glossy
understand
at
what
times.
works. Yeah, the gloss on it, it's like sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And it just takes me out a little bit, but it doesn't ruin the setting. From the get go, I could say I like the atmosphere 100%. And people are interacting with their set. It's not like Bram Stoker's Dracula where it is just in the background. Like these characters are moving, they're touching, they're involved with this atmosphere, which is great. The characters in general, I really wish they were better. I really wish I liked Benicio del Toro's performance a lot more because I really don't like it.
I love Benicio del Toro on this.
I
I think
think
he's
he's
fantastic.
so lackluster.
I think he's fantastic. I'll say it does seem sometimes like he'll have some moments where he's a little bit more stoic than maybe I would have thought that they would have played certain scenes. But he's an actor that really, when you get down to it, you really got to watch his eyes because it really changes certain scenes for me because you can watch him thinking and you can watch him going through memories in front of your eyes. And I think that there's a haunting quality to his performance that I think is really beautiful.
Yeah, I agree, but he also has to talk, and the talking bit is what takes me out of it
Oh,
because the dialogue is so stunting, and his delivery I feel is just like really not up to par a lot of the time. I think he does have a great like physical presence in the film, and I do enjoy that, but some of the lines he's given, he doesn't feel confident in when he's giving them. Doesn't sound confident because it's not very good lines. Like the scene where they're calling his mom a whore in the pub, I feel like it should have been way more powerful with his delivery, and I wasn't feeling it as much, and I would have liked that scene a lot more, especially because everyone in the pub's really being a piece of shit, and it's like, yeah,
yeah,
go after him, but he really kind of doesn't enough, and
I
it is what it is. I just wish I would have liked more, because I love Benicio del Toro a lot.
Yeah, of course.
I wanted something more out of it, and I wasn't getting it, but that's okay. I don't think it's by far a bad performance. I was just unimpressed.
For that scene specifically, I am completely the opposite from you, because I thought that the way he played that was really smart, because it's an easy scene to go for the big wide swing with your performance, and I feel like it was a bit more subdued and a little bit more realistic from his perspective, especially considering the way his demeanor is throughout the rest of the movie. It feels like it's more in character. I feel like if he had an outburst there, it would not have felt it in character to me at
But he
all.
has an outburst at the end. He says, "Don't call my mom a whore," and I really
Yeah,
don't like that
yeah,
delivery a lot.
I love it, because it's not the way that I would have expected it to come out, but it feels a little bit more like a real person to me personally.
I guess I would say if someone called my mom a whore, I would probably just punch them in the face. But it's all about how you perceive the character to go. And I just feel like with this character, I don't like the dialogue he's given in the scene very much. I don't think it's performed in a way that I find the character to be believable. I like the throwing the drink in the face, him just kind of getting thrown out of the bar. It's like, I'm fine with that. But with him just saying, like, "Hey, don't call my mom a whore," very after the fact, I wish when he's getting taken out of the bar, they could have had a bit more like visceral dialogue for him to deliver instead of just that, like really hit them hard or something, or just attack them. I'd be fine with that. I just feel like that was very much like it sounded like how a frat boy gets thrown out of a bar and everyone, he's just like, "Hey, fuck you, dude." And I kind of wish it was a little more to the dialogue, but it is what it is.
To each their own. It's
For sure.
whatever. I think actually one of my favorite scenes in the movie involving Del Toro is actually the dinner scene with him, Hopkins, and Emily
The first
Blunt.
one.
Yeah, the one where they fight and she leaves the room. I love that one. I love that scene. I love the way that they play that. Also, I gotta say, like, ending of the movie aside, because we talked about Del Toro enough. Ending of the movie aside, I love Hopkins in this.
I hate him.
Oh, I love him. I love him
I
so
feel
much. He's
just as
such a
bad
prick.
about him in this movie as much as I do with him as Van Helsing.
Oh,
I
I
really
don't.
don't like him.
I don't agree. I love him. I love the way that he's chewing scenery a little bit, but I just love the fucking just cold, detached nature of that character, and how it very clearly created the Lawrence Talbot that we see, and how the whole movie is essentially, I mean, it's all an allegory, at least from my perspective. This is just what I gleaned from it while watching it. They're using the werewolf as almost an allegory for the release of repressed trauma, and Hopkins is at the center of that. And the way that he picks at Talbot, I mean, at Lawrence, where he just picks at him, it makes one of those scenes where he just goes so violent and over the top and attacking people. I know it's not something that's 100% connected, but it is something that at least thematically feels like it's a consistent idea, how he's so repressed with his emotions. And that's another reason why a lot of the times he appears so stoic and sometimes distant, is because he's living in his head with the things that he's seen, and he's learning things that he didn't know he had seen. The whole movie is just him discovering his repression. And Hopkins, I mean, like, without Hopkins, the way that Hopkins performs, I 100% believe that character arc.
My biggest problem with that is that he is too one dimensional with his performance. It's like, I would get that from the first scene he's in. It's like, oh, he's very stone cold or whatever. I don't think there's enough difference in what he's doing throughout the entire film. Everything feels like he's just drawing on this one type of performance. It's this one version of this, and he doesn't change it very often or at all. And that's my only problem with it. Hopkins is a very versatile actor. And I feel like a lot of the films I've seen him in lately, it's just like he gives this performance where it's just one note. And I feel like it's so disappointing that he does that so clearly, like it seems.
Oh, I mean, that I guess that's what you can do when you get to his age and his stature. He just takes roles and does things. But
I get it, but
right or wrong, I'm not. That's definitely not an excuse.
like
Yeah, I've seen
the thing,
Transformers 5.
like look at him in Silence of the Lambs. It's like
You just
the
won Best
reason
Actor.
the reason why that's so crazy, it's like his delivery in a lot of scenes can be very subdued, but a lot of the nuances and the changes in his delivery as the film goes on makes him more entangled and makes him more emotional, which is ironic because he's so fucking like cold-hearted. And that's kind of what I would have liked more from this character, but it is just the constant like cold. And he makes a few snarky comments, which I like, but that's really it. Even the way he reacts to everyone is the same way. And sometimes it's cold, like, oh, what do you understand? Like, what's going on? What's he doing? And then sometimes it's cold. It's like, dude, get the fuck out of here, you senile old man. What are you doing? Like, stop lingering.
See, I love his performance, especially in the scenes when he talks about his wife, because you can see there's this longing in his eyes and his face, because you learn later on what happened. It recontextualizes all of it for me, especially the catacomb scene where he's talking to Lawrence about how he locks himself up with the shrine of his wife, and how, yeah, like he's a bad dude and he killed his wife, but it's not something that he took pleasure in. It's just that when he became that person, he just didn't stop, and he embraced the beast. So like scenes where he's talking about his wife, and also there's a scene earlier on, it might have been maybe almost midway through the movie, where he's talking to Lawrence. I believe it's on like in the stairway, talking about how much he loves Lawrence, and like, I hope you believe that I love you. And in the end, he wants his son to come home, but he doesn't understand what he's done to his son. And I think that's kind of the thing about this movie that I find really beautiful, that the third act kind of betrays a little bit because of how ridiculous it gets. There is a genuinely smart emotional center to this movie that I really love between those two characters. And yeah, he's not a likable person, but he's got it's just a really twisted kind of parent. Just the way the relationship between them is just really twisted.
I think there should be more of an emotional connection. Like, I think that the movie starts off trying to have an emotional center, and as the film starts out, it does have that, but it slowly starts to decrease more and more. Like, especially after the asylum scene, I feel like the heart gets taken more out of it, and it becomes more like he's now upgraded from bad dad to supervillain status. It takes me a bit out of it, and I would like it to be not more classic, but like to have more charm to it, to have a heart to it, to have a soul to it. And the third act does betray a lot of that. But even disregarding the third act, like a lot of the characters, like the townspeople are just shitty to be shitty. The only nice thing I like about this movie is that everyone's like, fucking werewolves. That's stupid. Who would believe that? And then they're just like, if I don't fucking care if he is a werewolf, we gotta fucking kill him. Like they don't think twice. It's like, nah, he's just like, no, he could be a werewolf. Fucking get rid of him. I do like that change.
It's kind of tough to dispute it when he runs through the streets of London murdering people. So
yeah, but the townspeople do that after he first transforms.
no, I know. I'm just saying, like
They're
it's
like,
hard for anybody in the movie to dispute it. Like in most movies, this is just like it takes till the last 20 minutes of the movie for people to wake up and figure it out.
yeah, and this one doesn't. I like that.
It's early on, and he gets caught quick. He doesn't get arrested quickly. It takes another like 20-25 minutes before he gets arrested, but they come for him after the first time that he gets. That's one of my favorite scenes in the movie too, because they fucking grab him, they try to take him, and fucking Anthony Hopkins blows the head off a statue, and the statue hits the guy in the eye. It's just like, oh, sorry, I was aiming for your face.
Yeah.
Shit's really funny.
One guy I like in this movie consistently every time he shows up is
Weaving.
I don't want to say they call him, but it's the assistant, you know.
Oh
yeah.
Why don't I remember this man's name?
It's like Sick, but
Sing,
yeah.
Sing.
I really like Sing. Every time he's on screen, I really enjoy his performance.
Yeah, he's great.
His facial emotions are so prominent. His line delivery is great. His scene with Lawrence is great. His scene with everybody is just awesome.
You can tell he genuinely cares about Lawrence and the family.
Yeah.
And he's there because he cares about people. Like there's no one there for him to wait on anymore except for his father.
Yeah.
And he's still there.
Sing clearly knows he's a fucking wolf.
Yes, he knows. Although for some reason he doesn't know that the dad has been unloading the powder from the shells.
Yeah.
I guess he hasn't touched them in a long time. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a little bit of a goofy thing that I realized when he was like, "Yeah, I removed the powder from those shells all those years ago." I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
That's when the third act I was like,
that Sing consistently has been unloading and loading throughout the movie. You just happened to unload that years ago. Okay, buddy.
Yeah, that was when I was like, okay, third act's going down a little bit here. I love the speaking of, like, the people not believing in werewolves, the asylum scene. There's
I like that
two
scene
things I
on its
don't.
own.
There's two different things that I want to discuss in that scene, because one thing is I love just the scene where he's just sitting there, he's just shouting, "I will kill all of you," and no one's believing him. They're all laughing at him, and the fucking doctor is talking to everybody, not paying attention because he's all up his own ass. He's just an arrogant prick, and not listening to people telling him, look behind you, and he's changing into the werewolf, and he just gets fucking wrecked. It's thrown through a window and impaled on a fence.
I gotta say, for the idea of saying like, oh, a full moon's coming out, and we're gonna show in front of everybody that you're not gonna transform to get rid of your delusions. Ideally, is a smart scene. It almost seems like a competent doctor. All
Yeah.
the shit he does beforehand, I don't understand what fucking purpose it has besides just being torture.
Well, that's because
Like
that's
you
the
have to
outlook
assume
on.
you have to assume, oh, it's an old time fucking
Yeah.
asylum. They just torture people. It's like, yeah, but it looks like they're just trying to make him cold. Like, I'm not seeing any benefit besides just it's torture.
I mean, I guess it's. I mean, I don't know the science behind it, but I'm sure it has something to do with shock. But
I don't
That's
know.
all I can theorize. I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know what mental health treatment was back in the day, back then in England. So I'm actually surprised that's not as bad as I thought it would be. Actually, I thought that they were going to go a lot worse than that, but still not good. But yeah, no, I think it is a really smart idea. It's a believable idea that he
It
would bring
is.
him out there, and that it just happens to be he was wrong, and got wrecked for it. But the thing about that scene that I want to talk about, it's particularly this scene, because the first time he changes, I don't think it looks that bad. The visual effects for the change in that scene have not aged well. I mean,
They're
it's over
terrible.
10 years. It's over 10 years. I don't know how it looked back. I mean, I can't remember what that looked like to me back then.
I know you always told me when we were talking about the film how like they put VFX over the makeup, and if you're looking at some of the makeup for the Wolfman scenes, it just looks like regular makeup. Like it just looks really good.
No, I'm talking about the changes
Just the
specifically.
changes then?
Yeah, and also some of the
Yeah.
sometimes in certain sequences the face is not makeup. It's a CGI
Yeah.
face for
I
expression, for
I
greater
can
expression.
sometimes like I notice that, but all around it's not too glaring.
No, the actual makeup for the Wolfman, I think it looks fantastic.
Yeah, but the transformation scenes look fucking awful.
That that
Even the
the
first
second
one,
one, I don't think the first
yeah.
one looks that
Well,
bad.
the first one
It's
pisses
mostly in
me off
darkness.
more because the first one's clearly a rip on the fact that it's American Werewolf and the angles that it's shot, the body movements that are being contorted. Like they contort his leg out like it's
Yeah,
American Werewolf.
yeah.
His leg wouldn't look like that because he's not turning into a fucking wolf. Why would they do that?
Well, I mean, that's up to interpretation in this movie as how they want their Wolfman to look. I'm not going to pick apart that, because that.
I just don't like the fact a lot of that transformation scene is shot for shot, very
Yeah,
similar to American Werewolf. And
I
it kind
agree.
of bugs me where it's like, well, he doesn't look anything like this. And if you're going to make his leg bend to be like an actual wolf, it makes no sense when he stands up on two legs for a lot of the time.
Yeah,
There are times when he runs on all fours, don't get me
yeah.
wrong, but he wouldn't stand like that with those type of limbs. I think it's weird.
I mean, it's kind of funny that they do. I have a feeling this might be part of it, but the guy who did the makeup is Rick
It's Rick
Baker,
Baker.
so
Yeah.
it might be part of it. It's kind of they're trying to homage, but the problem is like 2010 was that time where people were. I mean, it's not the only time, but it's one of those times where they were experimenting with visual effects and seeing what they could do with them, and they just weren't there yet. I think if you did a CGI wolf transformation now with the motion capture and all the different kinds of effects that we have now, probably would have done it better. But again, it is a 10, 11-year-old movie. I'm not surprised that the CGI is aged, but if it were up to me, and it wasn't up to me, if it were up to me and you had Rick Baker, don't make it CGI. Like he's literally done inarguably the best werewolf transformation ever.
I'll
Just let
say
him do the transformation.
I'll
You
say
paid
that
$150 million for the movie. You might as well.
I'll say that if you're gonna do a movie and nowadays it's not realistic to have a creature that's like a werewolf completely in prosthetic or animatronic. So
Yeah.
realistically it's not happening. But if they did it like they did it in this movie, where most of the time when you're getting up close shots of it, it is makeup. But when it is rapid movements or whatever, it's CG, I would be fine with that. I think that's kind of how it has to be nowadays. So seeing that in this film is almost like a precursor to how I think it should go from now on. It's not how I expect it to go. I expect it to be
Yeah.
full CG, but I think that's how it should look most of the time.
I would also argue though that nowadays you're right. But I would argue that 10 years ago, you'd have a bigger chance of having a fully
Full CG.
no, 10 years ago, I think you'd have a better chance of having more of a practical wolf because it was like the way that
2010.
visual effects have progressed since 2010 rapidly.
Yeah.
Now when it's fully CGI, I wouldn't be stunned. And
Yeah.
also it would probably look fantastic.
I
So
just always feel after about the mid 2000s to like 2015,
it's an
CG
onslaught
was
of CG.
being like CG has been very much like prominent. Do this, make it CG, show how good we are with our CG or whatever. Nowadays, I feel less like companies are trying to say, look how good our CG is, but make sure the CG feels authentic, which is a
Yeah.
different entire point. A lot of the time, CG is necessary in scenes, but you never feel like someone's pointing to it being like, you like that shit, don't you? You fucking like that
Yeah.
shit. But during those times in film, it's like you fucking you in it. You you like that. Come on, bro. You fucking you got a hot on for this one, man. It's like, dude,
Yeah.
it's a fucking computer design. No, I don't fucking care, bro.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because like I will completely concede that the werewolf transformations have not aged well, but there are some aspects like conceptually of the werewolf changes that I love. Some of the detail oriented aspects of like the way that each part of his body changes. I mean, it reminds me of American Werewolf, but
They even have the pseudo shots of him hallucinating, being very close to American Werewolf.
yeah,
Even with the girl he likes being assaulted by a werewolf.
yeah,
A lot of shots like that are very much heavily inspired. I wouldn't say it bothers me nearly as much as like the transformation scene because it's inspired, but like those are good ideas to have in a wolf film. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and also the context of it's very different because
yeah,
he's getting a lot of these visions after he's being fucking tortured in an insane asylum. And it is
not
progressively going
not
insane.
always.
Not all
Also
of them,
with
but
after, yeah.
a lot of them do show up while he's going insane at the loony bin. So those like conceptually, I can get behind those. Like, yeah, they are technically kind of homage, but the context is
Oh yeah.
completely different, which is why it
The
works.
asylum ones I feel are so there's so much of it. It's so much visual style over substance where it's like ooh, crazy kooky. It's like what the fuck? I'm not even gonna be able to keep up with all this. You're throwing so much shit at once. Like,
I liked most of that. The stuff that I couldn't get behind is when he and Gwen's there, he's there, and then all of a sudden the Wolfman attacks. It's a
yeah,
big jump scare moment, and then there's another like they do the same thing twice in a row.
yeah.
It's just the 2010s, or like the late 2000s into 2010s where it's just jump scare city. Sometimes they don't, surprisingly. There's some sequences where I was expecting jump scares that they don't do jump scares. Not at least not the way that we think of them, because we think of them with the musical stinger and all that stuff. And like the one I think of is I think it's in the gypsy assault scene where somebody's standing off to the side and a wolf, it's just completely deadly silent, and a wolf comes out of frame and tackles the person out of frame.
Yeah.
There's no stinger. It's just the sound of him ramming into
Being
this
hit,
guy.
yeah.
And that one really works. I wish they did that more often.
I think the sound is good. I don't like how it looks on camera though.
Oh, it shook my fucking room. I think the sound mixing for this movie is really good.
Yeah. I think the as soon as he gets hit, it doesn't look like he got attacked by something. It looked like someone threw him out of the shot, like it was like a quick cut. I don't visually like that as much as I like the sound of it. I will say the sound design for most of the film is really on point and really gets you into the film, but some of the visuals just retract.
Yeah, one of the things about the movie I was actually really surprised about when I first saw it, because I didn't know what I was going into when I first saw this movie, was how gory this movie is. And I was wondering how you'd feel about that as like a fan of the OG monster movies.
I don't
Because
think it takes away anything. It's a different story. I
yeah,
I like gore in films that require it. I don't think it's a necessary thing for a lot of horror films like people seem to think. But with this type of movie, I think it feels necessary. I think the only times where things become too much is just like when it has no not narrative weight because people getting slaughtered at the gypsy camp doesn't have narrative weight, but it has like a dire feel to it. It makes the event feel big, which I like. It
It does.
adds to it.
It does wind up backing up some things narratively because they make a big deal about how you're saying like it was a fucking wolf or whatever. It's out there, and the guy Hugo Weaving is just like, what? There's no witnesses. I don't know what you're talking about. And he starts like saying like basically, I believe you're the crazy guy. That's like the only thing, like them all getting slaughtered supports that.
Yeah. I just mean
Although
in
they
general.
weren't all slaughtered.
But being slaughtered versus like showing all that amount of gore.
Oh yeah,
Showing
yeah.
the gore doesn't have like any narrative weight to it, but it also doesn't detract from the narrative, which is a problem.
It's a bit
gore
of a
can detract from the story. This doesn't though.
yeah, it's a bit of a spectacle, but it is really showing you the viciousness of werewolves within this movie.
Yeah.
And I really like that. Like I love the original Wolfman movie with no gore. I think that it's a fantastic movie, but it's a fantastic movie for a completely different reason. And the way that they handle horror is completely different than the way this movie does. But I love just how vicious this movie is at times.
How do you feel on the romance?
I
Just
like
whatever to you.
I like it. It's not
It's
something
fine.
it's not something that is offensive. I did find it, especially towards the end, it really did land for me a lot, that like towards the end where she has to kill him. I don't know if that's because of the movie itself. I got to really think about it, where it's the movie itself, or it's that Emily Blunt is just a fantastic actress. But it worked for me. I can see why it probably wouldn't for some people, but I did enjoy. I think they had chemistry, and I think that it's a believable romance in the situation that they were in.
I can agree to that. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I think it is just fine. But you don't have a character to replace Lawrence Talbot's father from the original to do that, because he doesn't have enough connection with anybody except for Emily Blunt's character. I don't love the romance, but it's necessary to get to that conclusion. How she kills him, I think, is fucking stupid.
You don't like
Whatever.
that she shot him with silver bullet?
Is it a silver bullet though?
Yeah, they make a big point on the way in. That Hugo Weaving's loading his gun with
Yeah,
silver
it's
bullets.
silver or whatever.
Yeah,
I just really think that to me showcases how of its time period though, like just a gun close range pop off from early, like, oh yeah, that's a 2010 movie, all right.
it almost
It
felt like
just
they were trying to subvert expectations because they make a big deal out of the cane.
that I hate the cane. I fucking hate the cane so much. The only thing I like about the cane is that it leaves the idea of that maybe Hugo Weaving, because he clearly was going to turn into a werewolf, he notices that him having the cane, maybe he kills himself before it happens. That's the only idea
No,
of why the cane is useful. But
at the end of the movie, somebody howls. I don't think he did.
that's an assumption. That's how the film plays out. I just
That's the way I read it. I personally read it. I don't know if that was the intention or not, but
yeah.
he was the only
You
person
can
there
just
that got bit.
yeah. He'll
So
be the only other person, but I
maybe there's
don't
more
like his
werewolves. I
character
don't
in
know.
general.
I love him.
I really fucking hate the cane being in the movie in general. It adds to nothing really.
It's just random.
Yeah,
It's
just
kind of it's iconography.
that's what I meant earlier when I said like things from the 40s film being in here detract from it. Like the cane shouldn't have been in here. A guy randomly gives him a cane on the train ride, and I like that scene. I do. And I think it's a great scene, but it gives narrative weight to this cane that is useless in the film. So the narrative weight doesn't matter. And there's the scene where he pulls it out to kill his dad. And I'm like, that'd be great, but he doesn't do it. So it's not great. So you have this narrative built around this cane, and the whole secret, oh, pull the sword out. It's like, oh, wait, never mind. Fuck you. That's not how it goes. And that's not just like, oh, well, you had expectations for this. If you didn't have a scene building up the cane, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
That's the problem with it. But giving the scene to that, giving the cane having narrative weight, and it having no real utilized purpose. Even Hugo Weaving takes the cane when he leaves for some reason, because he can walk after having his neck gorged. He can get up, take the cane, and leave, and he doesn't use it. Why is this cane so attached to everyone, but it means nothing?
Yeah, that's the thing in the movie that specifically, like, it is there as an homage to the movie, not homage. It's just like, hey,
Yeah.
this is in the movie that we're remaking, so we're gonna put it in here.
It feels like such a
Um,
waste of space.
it's not something that like to me ruins the movie. It's just like it's just something
It
that's
bugs
there.
me. It
Yeah,
bugs me because if you took out the scene with the cane and Lawrence always had it, it wouldn't bug me as much.
yeah,
I think having that scene really does detract from it. And it's like, oh, it diverts your expectations. It doesn't, it just wastes my time because it doesn't. I don't expect him to get beat to death with a cane because this fucking movie clearly says like this guy's really fast. He's just gonna kill you if you try to beat him with a cane.
yeah.
Maybe you stab him. I'm sure you could do that versus beating him to death, but just in general, you shouldn't put so much weight into it or have it be so visual in the film and then amount to nothing really.
Yeah, I get that.
The only real huge deviation besides the dad, Kane,
Same asylum.
Insane Asylum, the only real big
Stomping
one
around
also
London.
is that since the dad is the original werewolf, it's not the character who was the gypsy's son. The gypsies also feel very much less involved and they don't really serve as a purpose as much as just being there in this film.
Yeah, they're a bit of an exposition type
Yeah.
of
And
presence.
they don't help really. They're just there. Like
All they do is basically tell Lawrence he's a werewolf,
yeah, and then
and that
Gwen goes
he's
there
gonna
to
change.
say, "Oh, I want to help him." And I don't know if that conversation led to anything because it doesn't seem like it did.
Yeah, the gypsy told her that you have to release him, and I'm sure he's like, I'm sure you know what that means. And she's like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I could do that. And she's like, you're gonna fucking have to. So
Yeah.
get over it.
Okay.
Suck it up, Buttercup. Yeah, that's one of the. I wish the gypsies had a bit more of a presence. I mean, like, I mean,
Or just don't be involved in the
they
movie, really.
like
The gypsies don't need to be there.
they are technically important to the movie because his mom's a gypsy. He has a connection to the gypsy
But
people.
that's not really a connection as much as like, oh, my mom was one. There's no tied connection in the plot, really.
Yeah,
Because the mom isn't a character as much as just she's an idea for Lawrence, an idea for the dad. If the mother was alive and played a part, if being a gypsy played into the heritage more, I would understand, but the gypsies don't matter in this. The mom is a gypsy, but what does that narratively mean, really? Besides a bunch of assholes calling her a whore. See, that's the thing. Like, I like that this movie is different. I would say that it benefits from being different. I think the fact that it does try to do things that are too similar actually detract from the movie in my point of view. So you take out the gypsies, you could change who the fucking original person is, make it the dad, just don't make it fucking Van Helsing from 2005. You could do a lot of things in it. I think they have some really cool ideas. I think some of them work, some of them don't. But all in all, I didn't hate it. I just thought small things bugged me, but I had a decent time with it. It wasn't offensive. I just said I wouldn't go back and watch it because there's nothing that draws me to this experience.
yeah.
I thought things were cool. I disliked some things, but I thought other things were interesting.
Yeah, I really, really, really enjoy this film. I have problems with it. It's not a perfect movie at all, but I was consistently engrossed in this movie from beginning to end, and even that's even with
That's
how much
cool.
I really don't like. I with the movie that it's in, the third act just doesn't make sense. But even then, I was so into the movie, from the tone, the ambiance of the movie. I love, like I said, I love the way that this movie looks and feels, and that's a combination of a bunch of things: cinematography, set design, costume design, score. Like it's a really awesome movie. Like the ambiance on it is incredible, and it's like nothing else that Joe Johnston made. Like Joe Johnston's filmography there's nothing like this. This is just a weird outlier in his filmography because I
There's
associate
no
him with
fun in it. As weird as
yeah,
it sounds, but a lot of his films have like a fun aspect to it.
yeah, it's like you usually associate him with movies like Rocketeer, Captain America: The First Avenger. I don't like the movie, but Jurassic Park 3 is still an adventure film with, like, in that regard. But like this is like a gothic horror movie with a MMA SummerSlam battle at the end for weird reasons. But I really loved what this movie is trying to do. It doesn't always make it to where it wants to be, but this is a movie I definitely see myself revisiting.
That's cool.
Something I feel like I could throw on and just enjoy. It's not something I would throw on over the original.
I can't really say I agree, but I can understand it. Like, I don't love anything in it to the point of saying, like, we got to come back to it. I think the design is, see, the thing is, like, when they showcase when he has like the flashbacks, or not the flashbacks, but like the dreams after he first gets assaulted, they show it, but it's like really quick cuts of the Wolfman design. And I hate that shit. I hate it so much. Like, just don't show it at that point. Don't show it, or show like deformed. Like when they show like the fucking Gollum kid, like that.
Oh yeah,
He looks like Gollum. I don't care what it says. That's fucking awesome. That design, that look, that's creepy. That's a fucking sick design.
it's cool. It's cool, like explaining how werewolves came to England too. It's because it's basically this motherfucker brought them to England.
And I think just having that is really fucking unique.
It's cool. It's cool world building.
I don't know why he looks so much like Gollum, but it's unique. And
he actually reminds me of something from The Witcher.
Really?
Yeah, the game.
Oh, okay. But when you first see him, when he's at the bed, it's like, that's fucking weird.
That scared the shit
that?
out of me.
I think about it more because it's like, is that supposed to be him as a kid deformed if he was a werewolf? Like, before they answer who that is, it raises a lot of questions. Versus just like, oh, here's a quick cut of the Wolfman's face. You can't really tell, but you know what it is. It's like, all right, that's stupid. That's of its time, but it's stupid. But you show that kid, it's like, I have a lot of questions right now. And I really like that.
Yeah.
That fucking design. I like that. I like that a lot. It's so fucking weird.
Yeah, it's creepy.
You make a deformed child, and I'm going to be intrigued.
Nice.
I'll never watch this movie over the original Wolfman.
I wouldn't either.
I'll watch it over American Werewolf, but I definitely think it was. I'm glad I saw it. I thought I had a fun time getting through it. It's a bit long. I'll say that much. I think
I have the unrated version too, though. That's why it's longer.
Is it really?
It's the unrated version.
Okay.
It's a little bit longer. I think it was originally released at like an hour and 45 minutes or something.
So it's like 20 more minutes then.
That's like including credits.
Yeah. It's over 2 hours. I think it's like 2 hours, 8 minutes or whatever.
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
I wonder what scenes were cut out for theaters.
I have no idea what the theatrical cut is. Absolutely no idea. The only version of it I've ever seen is the unrated version. Generally, that's what I do whenever I get a movie I haven't seen that I have multiple cuts of. If there's an unrated version, I mean, this is referred to as the unrated director's cut. So that's the one I gravitate towards instantly, especially if it's called the director's cut. So I have no idea what the theatrical version of this movie looks like. But apparently people didn't like it. So its tomato meter score is not good.
That really matters too.
No, it doesn't matter, but
yeah, I know.
It's just interesting to look at people's perspectives. It's like it's rated at 34% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think. I mean, like, that's not a rating. That's an aggregate, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's just like I feel like that's
34% of people don't like the movie.
Yeah, like that 34% of them like it.
Oh yeah, shit. My bad. Sorry.
It's okay, but it's like that to me. That seems super duper fucking. That seems really harsh, really harsh. I mean, I guess I'm not surprised.
I mean, if you in general like expect to go to Rotten Tomatoes to see your favorite film or whatever, a film that you like, and it gets shit on, it's like, don't be surprised.
Yeah, I mean,
I always feel like the more unique a film is, the less likely everyone is to love it. But it also means that like one person's really gonna fall in love with it.
Yeah, I mean, I know someone who absolutely adores this movie, more than I do.
Good for them.
Yeah, I mean, I really do like it. I mean, he actually like maybe want to revisit the film. And I mean, I don't agree with everything that every position that he has on it, because this is like a masterpiece level movie to him. It's not that for me. It's not that for me. I mean, I'm just looking at it like it's not like my opinion is objectively correct, but objectively removing my experience with the movie, as far as just like my emotional, just the way that I took the movie in. Objectively, the third act is a different fucking movie.
That's the thing. Like, if someone said like, I'm not saying this person called it a masterpiece, but it's like, it can't be true. Like, there's so many fundamental flaws. And if you say like, I love this movie and it's a 10 out of 10, it's different from saying, I think it's a masterpiece. Like, if I said to you, I think Jim Carrey's The Mask is one of the most fun fucking movies I've ever seen, and every time I watch it, I have a lot of fun, I would say it's a 10 out of 10. Where I sit here and say, Jim Carrey's The Mask is a masterpiece and meant to be watched on every cinema screen around.
You'd be correct.
I wouldn't be correct, but I wish I could be.
I love that movie to death, but yeah.
No, I do love it, but I feel like you can love a film and also notice its flaws. 100%.
I mean, my favorite movie of all, I mean, like, I would tell you that I would consider my favorite movie to be a 10 out of 10 movie, but I'm sure I can nitpick problems with it. Like, it's not, you can always nitpick a movie. This is not nitpicking the movie, though. This is a movie with like legitimate, like, some glaring issues.
Yeah.
That as much as like I can forgive them to a degree, just enjoying the movie for what it is.
What would you call Friday Part 4, final chapter? What would you give that a score of?
I haven't seen it in a while. I'd probably give it like an 8.
Oh fuck, never mind.
I mean, like that's like
it kind of defeats my.
It was subjective, objective. I mean, like
subjectively.
My objective opinion. Oh, subjectively 8.
Okay.
Objectively, probably a 6.5. Just looking at it from a perspective.
6.5.
That's not bad. It's just
okay. Well, 6.5 is like 65. It's like decent.
I'm just looking at it from the perspective of if you really want to evaluate the movie based off of like what it really brings to the table, as far as like it has fun characters, but they're not characters with immense depth, and it's not like it's a movie that, that pulls a lot of twists and turns and stuff, and the script is not necessarily that intelligent, but it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter.
But I think that's the point. Like it doesn't matter. Like we saw Mortal Kombat, and like it's not, these characters aren't meant to have a huge amount of depth and a huge driven narrative, but the things that it does have sometimes suck ass.
Yeah.
So even though it's not trying to be a lot, what it does try at sucks. So that takes me out of it more. If a film doesn't try to do that and it delivers a bare minimum and it's like, I like this, I can't get mad.
Yeah.
If things do a bare minimum and still fuck it up, wow, I'm angry.
Yeah, for me, like in general,
I would say it's a 7. Like if you ask me, like objectively, I'd say Friday Part 4 is a 7 because there's not a lot of things that could objectively take you out of it. There's not a lot of filmmaking that's genuinely bad. I'd say maybe some of the scenes in the hospital can be bland or boring, but that's the very beginning and things speed up pretty fast.
Yeah.
I can't name a lot of things that would say this is a bad movie. Versus, like you could in Part 3. Like Part 3, it's like there's a lot of shit that's just objectively bad.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of filmmaking regard the things in there that are just not good because all the movie is just.
But I can't think of any for Part 4. That's why I'm like, oh, really 6.5. I wouldn't say it's like Part 4 is fucking 9 out of 10, bro. But I could say objectively maybe it's a 9 for me. But
at the end of the day, it's like, to me, like, you asked me for a number, I gave a number. Like to me, scores are arbitrary. They're just arbitrary.
Bro, you asked me for a number. At the end of the day, I can't count. What does it mean?
Exactly.
Like,
I didn't finish fucking algebra. No, at the end of the day, scores are arbitrary. It's all just, sometimes in certain circles they're required because if you're reviewing something, you need to give it a score.
Yeah.
But that's not your whole opinion on something.
My perspective I was getting at more so is that I know you like Part 4 a lot, and the reason I attack that is that Part 4 is just a fun movie.
Yeah, it's entertaining as fuck.
If you said Part 4 to you is a 10 out of 10, you just loved it, I'd be like, that's cool, because I can't see any reason to really hate Part 4. But you could also say, I think it's a 10 out of 10, but I don't think it's a masterpiece. There are films that I think in general you could love to death and say, I love this movie. It's no fucking masterpiece, but I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I put that in the category, like, especially like because I log all the movies I watch on Letterboxd, and you do a star rating system there. The nice thing about the 5-star rating system is that you can give something Winter Soldier.
Winter Soldier's a really fun movie, but I wouldn't call it a masterpiece.
4 stars.
So you give it another 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I wouldn't. If you asked me a couple years ago, probably would have given it a 9.5.
I would agree with you. If you asked me 3 years ago, I'd have been like, bro, it's a 6. But now I'm like, yeah, I have fun with it. There's only a few things that take me out of it. Any Marvel film that you really love, you could say, like, you could say Disney's Marvel, should I say? Any Marvel film you could really say like objectively, people can really be like, I love this movie to death. But if they ever called it a masterpiece to me, I might have to spit on them. Like,
like the nice thing about the 5-star rating system, I don't like the 5-star rating system generally, but the nice thing about it is that if you give something 5 stars, that's like a range between like 95 and 100. So
yeah,
I give something
I've always
5.
considered a star system based on personal enjoyment.
Yeah.
I just think when people call things a masterpiece is when I'm like,
Well, masterpiece is one of the most
that's more of an objective term in my perspective versus a subjective term.
Masterpiece is like one of the most overused words in film discourse. It's either a masterpiece or it's a complete utter dumpster fire. It's one or the other. And
or what's the other one? Is not a classic, but people always say it all the time. Like it's gonna be
a modern classic.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Modern classic in the making.
Yeah.
Everything's like it's our new classic. It's like, okay, I mean that's a phrase that doesn't make sense because something can't be new and be classic. But okay, someone didn't finish English class. I hate how masterpiece is overused.
I don't want to get off topic, but I was thinking about that literally the other day. Is about like a classic or things that are like when we're gonna be fucking 45 or whatever, and we're gonna hear a song on the radio and being like, oh fuck, I remember this, but not in a way where you're like, hey dude, this came out when I was young, but like in a way where you're like, the song just comes on and you don't notice it because like you've heard it all your life. But say you had a son or a daughter, be like, fuck is this shit? They'd be like, oh man, you don't like this? Like you haven't heard it before? It's like, what do you mean have I heard it before? It came out 30 years ago. It's like, all right, dude, calm the fuck down. I'm sorry.
You have the internet, fuck off.
Yeah, but just in general, like stuff like that, or some stuff in the 80s is so pop culture that they'll make jokes in a movie about it that we'll know about, even though we didn't experience it.
Yeah.
What about stuff like that that's going to happen for us where they're going to make jokes about things in a movie that we're like, oh shit, I get that. And we're going to have a kid being like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, you just had to fucking be there, dude. Shut up. Stop ruining this.
I can't wait till we have movies that make fun of the idea of a shared universe.
We already do.
They make fun of themselves by being bad.
Yeah.
Hey, I mean, we're talking about the Universal monster movies. This is the king of the fucking shared universe that just did not get off the ground because it sucked. Is The Mummy. Like
and Dracula Untold. They definitely
they tried twice.
Yeah.
They tried twice and they both suck. Although
we saw The Mummy in theaters and we both walked out saying it was fine.
It was fun. It was entertaining. And then as the time has passed, you're like,
man, I hear so many strong opinions on that film. People be like, that was the biggest fucking waste of space. I'm like, man, I don't think it's good, but like, what did it do, man?
It's a bad movie. But I wouldn't say it's like, is it the worst movie ever made? No, I've seen way worse. Like
people use that movie to say how fucking Tom Cruise throws too much weight around too.
Yeah,
and there's a million films that he produces and he's directly involved in, and they don't fucking turn out like that, man.
That's kind of the amazing thing, because at this point, if he's leading a movie, he's a direct producer of it. So like, if you look at his filmography, all the Mission Impossible movies since
American Made,
Made's fantastic. A Live Die Repeat, Edge of Tomorrow, All You Need Is Kill, whatever the fuck they're calling that movie this week.
Yeah,
that's an awesome movie. Terrible marketing, but an awesome movie. He puts out banger after banger after banger, and then The Mummy comes out and everyone's just like, oh, he's a shitty producer, he just throws his weight around. It's like, where was that on all the rest of these movies? Like movies like Fallout, that is considered to be one of the greatest action movies ever made. Oh, he threw his weight around on that one and it worked out. Like, no, it's just a bad movie. That movie was never gonna work.
That pissed me off so much, is that there's so many things that are just structurally wrong with the plot and the story of it. It was like, oh, he fucked it up, but he made it an action movie. It's like, bro, hey, dude, I'll tell you this much. There are some scenes that are directly supposed to be horror in this movie, and they fucking suck. He didn't do that. So, like, if it's going to be a pure horror movie, you would have fucked that up too. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, but also
you have a mismatched piece of shit that's literally Frankenstein together, and it doesn't work.
My thing though with that movie is that, like, people are like, oh, he made it an action movie. It's like, did you see the previous try? Dracula Untold is a giant action movie. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? You are objectively wrong.
I don't want to.
It has nothing to do with Tom Cruise.
I don't want to break anyone's heart, but you're never going to get a Universal monster series that's built around horror again. You aren't. Invisible Man, most of the movie isn't a horror movie. It really is like a suspense thriller.
I would say it rides the line until like especially like the third act when it starts getting actiony,
Yeah.
a little bit actiony. But I think it rides the line earlier on because there are a lot of sequences where they are trying to scare you with the
There
Invisible
are,
Man.
but
But
I wouldn't call it a direct horror. I'd say it says a lot more about how movies nowadays tend to change and
they're
differ.
multifaceted. They're more like they're more nuanced as far as like, you can't
Yeah.
lock them into a certain genre because the nice thing about the Invisible Man, which we'll eventually get to, is like it is a horror movie, it is a thriller, it is a psychological drama. It's a lot of things, and they pretty much all work somehow. I mean, that's just a testament to Leigh Whannell. It's just a great director, but it all winds up coming down to like people just trying to put things in pigeonhole. You're just like, this is what this is, and that's the nice thing I'll say about some movies nowadays is that like they really bridge the gap on a lot of genres, including like I like the idea because this Invisible Man movie is relaunching again the Universal Monsters universe. I say universe in quotations because they have no desire at this moment to try to connect these movies. They're just trying to make good movies. And so far, this attempt is a lot better, but there's still a bunch of movies in development that we haven't seen yet. But they're going after talent. So I mean that's the good thing about that. Ryan Gosling is the next Wolfman. It's pretty sick.
Yeah,
It's pretty sick.
I like him a lot.
He's an amazing actor.
It's hard to be excited, I guess, is one way to put it.
Yeah, I don't blame you. It seems like it seems like a lot of times I mean, at least for me, I get excited about a movie and then it cannot meet any expectation for me. Like I mean, we
Usually,
just watched Mortal Kombat. I was looking forward to it. You weren't. I was hoping it would be at least entertaining, and it was not.
yeah. And I'm
So
sitting here and I'm still somehow disappointed at nights.
yeah, yeah.
But
So
no, like I think the cool thing about rewatching older horror films or films that you haven't seen before is it usually is a nice, pleasant surprise. The problem I have is getting not worked up or wondering about what's going to be coming out and how the quality is going to be. It's like I'd rather just not think about it and not get my hopes up because usually I'm just let down by it, or sometimes I get pleasantly surprised, and that's really cool.
yeah,
I can't name the last film I saw in theaters that was a surprise.
Invisible
I
Man.
thought, what'd you say?
Invisible Man.
Yeah, I didn't expect that to be good.
It looked
I
bad.
think Godzilla and Kong was better than I thought it was gonna be.
I was
There's things in it that I didn't like, but I think it was a fun movie.
I was expecting that to be at least entertaining, and that's what I got out of it.
I liked Kong Skull Island more than I thought I was gonna like that too.
Honestly, Snyder Cut, I wasn't expecting to like that very
I
much.
thought it was gonna suck.
Yeah, and it's my favorite movie of the year so far. That's not like it's a low bar. There's not really anything that came out that was, too high profile and great. That at least that I saw.
I mean, with this film for the Wolfman, I thought it was enjoyable. I had a good time with it. I won't go back to it anytime soon. I will say I wish that more people would do designs like that, but also have CG thrown into it because it's mandatory nowadays. It is mandatory. I'm sorry to break everyone's heart. You can't live like the 80s anymore. I think stuff like that is a necessity, but at the same time, so is great makeup designs, especially for horror films. I wish they do things more like that. I really don't have anything else to say besides I had fun with it.
Yeah, I mean, like I I hadn't seen this movie in almost 10 years. And I was expecting to like it. I was not expecting to love it the way that I do. Is it, perfect? No. I have problems with it. Some pretty decently sized ones too. But I can't deny the just joy I felt watching this movie and how it just kept me locked to the screen in a way that a lot of remakes don't. I mean, this came out at the end of towards the end of the deluge of horror remakes, but I think that I could probably call this one of the better ones I've seen. There's a clear
Of its
reverence
time period,
of its time period, especially. I mean,
yeah.
this movie came out the same year that the Nightmare on Elm Street remake came out.
Yeah, it came out the year after Friday.
Yeah, and I would personally call this better than both of those,
Yeah,
but they're also different kinds of movies.
yeah,
So,
100%.
but
This one had fucking like 8 times the budget as those two movies.
I would say probably more than 8 times. I'm
Yeah.
still absolutely floored by how much money they gave to this movie, and it's not even just like that. It's a remake of the Universal monster movies, but it's a hard R-rated movie.
Yeah.
So like it's gonna lose money that it could have gotten based purely off of the fact that it's people are getting their heads ripped off.
Did they lose money? Did they break even for it?
It was a movie that was $150 million for its budget, and it made 142.6, which means it did not even break even because
And then there's also marketing.
So marketing, theater takes. I think the general rule of thumb is you have to double your production budget. So it would have had to hit like 300 million. So this movie was a colossal bomb, sadly, because I actually really like this. I wish people saw it. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm still stunned. When I was sitting there watching, I'm like, man, like they put like I was like they must have put money into this. This has got to be like what, like a 65-70 million dollar movie, and for like a horror movie like this, like that's a lot. But I was like, I looked it up deliberately before we started recording. I'm like, I want to have this at my fingertips. I want to know, and I looked it up. It said 150 million. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Wow. That's confidence, man. That's giving that much money to a movie like this is confidence, and
I'm
they
sure a
pay
lot
off.
of it just went to the fucking salary for some of these actors.
Maybe. I
I
mean,
mean, I know Benicio del Toro produced it, so
yeah.
he probably didn't have to take that much cut. But the like Hopkins and I'm sure Hugo Weaving cost quite a pretty penny.
Hugo Weaving, especially. I mean, like Hopkins is
Yeah.
a very, very like storied actor, but I don't know how much weight he throws around considering all the schlock he makes. So, I mean, hell, like I
I
said,
have to assume he costs a decent amount because even when he's in some shit, though, it's still like expensive shit.
not. I mean, yeah, maybe back in this time, but not anymore. He shows up at direct-to-video movies all the time. So,
Oh, really?
yeah,
Get
yes,
fucked, old man.
I think they're direct-to-video movies. They look like direct-to-video movies, I should say. I don't know for sure, but Hugo Weaving for sure. I mean, this is. I mean, it's a decent while after Matrix, but for a long time he was riding on the Matrix. I mean, that's not to say like Hugo Weaving is an incredible actor, like just a fantastic actor, and clearly Joe Johnston liked working with him so much on this movie that he cast him as Red Skull. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, I don't know how much of it really is the salary though. Just thinking about how much visual effects work went into this movie.
Oh no, I know it's gonna cost a lot for visual effects. I just feel like
Makeup,
those
gore, costumes.
those two
That's
salaries must have cost a decent chunk,
yeah.
but
I'm just
not most
wow.
of it or anything. But like,
Yeah, they're definitely going to be in probably in the millions category, but that's still a lot of money for a movie of this
yeah,
kind of this
that's what my
movie's
favorite
length.
thing is when you think about like all the Avengers films. It's like, oh, it costs $340 million. Like, how much of that just goes to those fucking actors though? Like,
I think Robert Downey Jr. gets at least
50 million.
he's like 50 million on his own, so
Yeah, right there. That's a fuck.
he's the only actor who can ask for shit like that though. Like I'm sure like
Yeah, but I'm
Chris
sure
Evans
a
can
lot
make
of them
plenty.
made close to $1 million.
Oh, I'm sure. But I just like he's the only one who can ask for that large of a chunk. Maybe if he didn't ask for that much money and they put more money into their visual effects, they wouldn't look like shit.
Just put more money into their movies and not have to give a fucking third of the salary into a fucking actor. They could
Put
actually focus on a film.
put that money into a fucking third pass at a screenplay. Yeah, like I said, I was just looking through that before the show. I was just like, that is insane because that does not happen these days. These days, like the biggest horror movies that we get nowadays, they're micro budget horror movies.
50 million.
If even some of them,
I know, but I'm saying biggest is like 50 million.
yeah, like we get movies like
Halloween was like 20 million.
Halloween was less than that.
Wasn't
Halloween
it like
was
17 million?
I think it was like 7. Same
I
with
know.
same with Invisible Man. Invisible
Invisible
Man
Man was
made
like that's like 20 million, wasn't it?
no. It was like I think it was in the teens, if even. Blumhouse is just like the king of just micro budget horror, and their
Well,
movies make
you don't need to spend a shitload. Like,
yeah. It's just like
you
you
don't
think
need to
about.
spend guap to terrify.
You think it's funny. I just think it's funny, especially with something like Halloween, where like the previous 2 movies I think were like around 25 million. It's just it's amazing that nowadays like our biggest box office horror films are micro budget films. And it's amazing
I
that they
like
actually
that.
spent this
Keep it
much money.
simple.
It's just amazing to me. They spent this much money. They built this lavish, lovingly made period piece horror film for $150 million in 2010. That's just insane to me. It's probably why it doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
But it's just to me that's insane. That's just insane. That's more money than I bet you they spent on Bram Stoker's Dracula.
I would assume so, especially because Bram Stoker's Dracula came out in 92 or 93.
Yeah, I more so mean like adjusted for inflation and
Yeah,
stuff.
I know, but in general, I don't think they would put that much into it. Probably like
40 million. That's kind of saying like Van Helsing from 2004 was made for 160 million.
what?
Yes, I mean look at how
What
much.
the fuck?
But
Why?
look
There's
how
a
much.
lot of VFX. I know.
There's a lot of
whole
VFX.
lot.
There's a lot of big set pieces with complex stunts.
Shit is
I'm
so
not stunned.
What
I'm
like
not stunned.
I'm sorry, but what a waste of money.
But I'm more so
Like,
I'm more so looking at that from the perspective of that movie was made for just $10 million more than this, but it was PG-13.
yeah, so they probably made twice as much.
I don't know. Yeah, no, it made its money back. $160 million budget, 300.2 million USD. So almost, I think, almost made its money back.
I
Made
remember when
way
that
more.
film came out. That was a big deal too.
I
I
remember
like
watching
some
it
of
as
the
a
designs
kid.
in that movie.
I remember watching it as a kid and really enjoying it. I
I
don't
didn't
know
watch
how.
it as a teenager.
Yeah, I watched it when I was a child, and I remember having a blast with it. I don't remember much about it, and I don't know how I would feel about it now.
It's not very good. It's
Holy
fun.
shit! It was 2 hours and 25 minutes long, bruh.
All right, are going on. I'd say final thoughts for the Wolfman.
Yeah, my final thoughts are just I think that this is an underlooked movie. I mean, based purely off of its box office, it's definitely an underlooked film. I think people should give this a try. It's a movie that has a lot to enjoy. It's not a movie that's flawless. It's got its issues. Its third act is ridiculous. There's some story issues, some things that I probably think that they should have done another pass on the screenplay for. Overall, I love this movie. I love the way that it tackles its themes about repression and trauma and how that's manifested within the monster of the werewolf. I think that that's all really brilliant, and it's something that's going to keep me coming back to this more and more. And who knows, maybe I'll like this even more next time I watch it, because I definitely don't remember liking this movie that much when I first saw it. I'm not
All
giving it a
right.
score. I don't want to give scores.
We've been doing it every film.
Damn it, that means I have to. 8 out of 10.
Okay. I liked it. I liked it. I would say if I was going to recommend it to anybody, definitely lower your expectations for what you think it's going to be. Definitely separate it from the title The Wolfman and judge it based on purely what it's giving you. Based on what it's giving you, you have the right to go on just that, and you can come to your own conclusions. Some will love it, some will hate it, some will think it's a waste of their time. Some will think they want to get their friends invested into it. I can't see myself coming back to it. I can think that it was a good time to see. It's interesting to see how films nowadays for horror have definitely changed. I wish that some took more cues from this film, and I wish some would stay away from other cues in this film. But I think it's a perfect period of time to show the change in horror for cinema in general. I think that's something that you'll see in this, you'll notice, and you'll kind of enjoy more than anything else. Well, if I had to give it a score, I'd probably give it like a 6 out of 10. It may sound bad, but I just liked it. I'm not enthralled.
This is kind of crazy, because I thought this is the kind of dynamic we were going to have during the Bram Stoker review. I thought that I was going to enjoy it and you were going to hate it. Well, you don't hate this one, obviously. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but it's like I thought that we were going to have a disparagement gap for that one, and we wound up just both hating that movie. Whereas this one, I thought, like I told you today at work, I was like, I thought when you were going to sit down and watch this, you were going to either like it or hate it.
Yeah, see, that was my thing.
I didn't think you were going to be like, I love this movie. I didn't think you were going to feel the way that I feel about it.
Yeah, dude.
I was just hoping that you were going to enjoy it.
It's like fucking, I watched this movie, man, and an angel descended from heaven and fucking slobbed my knob the entire time, dude. I was going wild watching this film. And when you asked me at work, though, because I was even saying, like, I was just shitting on stuff. I was just joking around, but it's so easy to pick apart things you don't like in a film. I don't hate the film. I think some things I genuinely just really don't like, but they're so minuscule as far as being an actual film.
Yeah.
I bring up Mortal Kombat because there's things in the film just based on Mortal Kombat I cannot stand, but it as a film doesn't function very well.
Yeah.
And I can judge that without prior knowledge and say, is this a good movie? No, it's not. I don't think I can recommend it and say, yeah, have fun. There's cool scenes, but that's it. This movie, I could say, because of all my knowledge with horror, whatever, it detracts from me because of that. But as a film itself, I think it's an enjoyable film. And if you had no prior knowledge, you could have more fun with it. But just in general, you could just have fun with the film. It's just nothing super crazy.
Yeah, I generally try to take, especially movies that are remakes or reboots or continuations or whatever. I try my best to just take it as it is and not try to compare it to previous versions, just because I feel like that winds up being unfair, especially with this movie in the pantheon of Universal horror, I find it tough to compare because they're just completely different filmmaking styles and completely different eras of filmmaking. So I like to look at movies like this in a vacuum as much as I can, although you have to acknowledge similarities between them and things that they very clearly are homaging from previous versions of the
You
movies.
have to acknowledge the things that they're trying to get you to acknowledge.
Yeah. So it's like I can
Why the
acknowledge
king
it's
sucks.
yeah, like I can acknowledge that some of the things that they're like, look at this. Remember this? We saw the movie. We saw the 40s movie, man. You should check this out. Those like I can point to those, but as a movie on its own, as its own version of a werewolf film, I think this movie is awesome for the most part until the end. Because just as a movie, not taking it as a Wolfman film, just as a film, that third act is so incompatible with the rest of this movie that it's just like you can't not talk about that. You can't not point that out. Like I can't ignore that. It's just ridiculous. But I can also say, as much as it is a completely different movie, I had fun watching that other movie for that last 10 minutes of the movie. But yeah, no, I see where you're coming from, and I don't blame you for feeling the way that you do. That's the fun thing about movies, is that they're going to strike everybody differently. So you bring your own experiences and perspective to things, and you get something different out of it. That's the fun part.
Yeah. Hopefully I get more of an experience with the next film we watch. That's my biggest downside. I feel like I want to have more enthrallment with films. I'd almost rather hate something than just not be over the moon about it. Because like if you got like a fucking heavy feeling on a film, you feel like at least you sunk your teeth into something, even if the thing you sunk your teeth into is shit. At least you're fucking directly in there, man. But yeah,
That's
it's
that's kind
fine.
of that's
It's
kind of how
just
we felt about Mummy.
yeah, I just feel like a lot of the films I've watched lately have just been kind of like whatever, and it's kind of like annoying. So I'm just waiting for the next film that I see to kind of just fucking shoot me with some adrenaline, because like I really need it right now.
Well, do you want to reveal what the next movie is going to be, or are you going to hold that close to the vest until?
This movie has made me kind of change what I wanted to do next, because like there was two films we are going to consider. One of them's like a real favorite of mine, but it's not a new experience, so like I don't really care about watching that because it's a different type of adrenaline. It's an adrenaline where it's like yeah, man, like if I watch Back to the Future, I'm gonna be happy,
Yeah,
but I know I'm gonna be happy. I want to watch something that's like I want to be happy, but I want to be surprised. I want to be
yeah,
like, I've never seen this before. This is a new feeling. I
yeah.
want a new euphoria. So I kind of got a little restructuring going on right now in my head. I don't know
Yeah.
what the fuck I want to do now.
It's just like I'm looking at it, I'm just thinking to myself, what options are there?
I don't know. We could always just take a break from the whole monsters thing and get back to it. But I tell you right now, if the next film we watch is Invisible Man, I'm gonna look way worse on it right now if we watch it some other time.
Yeah.
If we watch Creature, I'm just gonna sit here being like, I don't know, man, I fucking love that asshole. Like, gonna be like, he looks cool, whatever.
Oh,
I
I
need
think
something that's gonna be like a fucking kick to the ass.
we can figure it out. It'll be a surprise.
Yeah. Think on that note, we're gonna call it a day. I hope you take this with a grain of salt when it comes to my bitchy attitude when it came to the film. I don't hate it. I'm just so mentally strained. I have fun with it. Mike had a great time with it. I think the coolest thing about going through these films is that we are jumping from different decades, and that's the coolest thing about it. If we did just do all the 30s and 40s, I would just sit here with my fucking dick in my hand, being like, "Oh yeah, dude, marathon." But
Yeah.
with going through these different periods, it really does feel like you're seeing what brings different directors into this genre and what makes them fall in love with it and give their own taste to it. And that's awesome.
It's fun seeing how completely different the filmmaking styles are
Yeah.
between all these. Like the way that it's just structured, the way that it's shot, the way that the movies are produced themselves, it's crazy seeing how things have changed.
So thank you so much for joining us, for jumping on in with us now. Jump on in next time, and we'll see what we sink our teeth into there. We're going to call it a day. Love you all. Have a nice day.